Howdy, folks. Right, we are missing Eric this week. That's expected. Okay, then. Cloud Foundry Foundation Technical Oversight Committee 4. What is it? The 18th of April, 2023. It's going too fast, so I've lost the notes. Hang on. Agenda for today, then, when it eventually loads, is review actions from last week, of which we have none, so that's fine. We'll hear from the Paketo working group, and then we have a couple of PRs to go through. The first one on the list is the one about CF Linux FS4, so we'll just bundle that conversation in at that point, unless anybody wants to split that out into a separate agenda item. As always, any agenda items you think I've missed and want to talk about, put them in. Same with PRs, any that aren't on the list and you want to talk about, put them on there while we're talking about other stuff, and we'll get to them when we get to them. All right, Paketo folks, over to you.
Well, thank you. I'm Rob. I'm filling in for Ryan Moran while Ryan is out on parental leave. Also, Sophie is here too. Sophie and I are sharing Ryan's responsibilities, but I'll be giving you the overview of what we've been doing on Paketo for the last few weeks. So I'll just jump straight in. So in terms of like what we've completed, probably the biggest thing is Jammy's support for all of the Paketo and the CF build packs. And I realize as I'm giving this overview, I'm just going to kind of interleave a couple of like CF updates because, as you all know, Paketo and CF are basically the same set of people, and a lot of these things overlap pretty highly. So we've added Jammy stack support for all of the Paketo build packs, and we're ready to deprecate the Bionic stack on the open source side in about 6 weeks. There's one known outstanding regression on the CF side with respect to the Jammy stacks. There's the AppDynamic integration with NodeJS integration doesn't yet work, requires Ruby. The build pack doesn't have Ruby. We're going to fix that pretty soon. So we're pretty much going to be done from our perspective, modulo the conversation that's going to come later. Some other updates from the Paketo side. We're continuing to add support for like reproducible builds. We're just kind of chipping away at some of the long tail here. The latest build pack that we're done with is Ruby, and we have basically got as good as we can with the upstream support. It turns out Rails doesn't actually make reproducible builds for details that are probably not of interest to this group, but we've basically got as far as we can go on that one. Hopefully future versions of Rails will be more deterministic and the Ruby build pack can be more reproducible. And there's probably like one or two like sort of community build packs that we'll explore as well on that front. We have created a static buildpackless builder for Jammy. And what that means is it's like a stack that has essentially nothing except like CA certificates and time zone data. It specifically does not have libc. It doesn't have any build packs bundled with it, but it's a builder, which means you can bring your own build pack. And we had a community member drive this out with the Rust build pack, which is a community build pack. It's not a fully supported one, but the community member was able to like build a statically linked self-contained Rust app using this buildpackless builder, which is pretty cool. It's the first time I've ever seen anyone actually do that in Paketo or CF. And the last kind of major update, I think, from this side of things that we've done is we have merged an RFC to change the process around the steering committee. So we now will have elections. This is modeled after the Cloud Foundry Foundation process. And so before I jump into sort of like upcoming stuff, any questions, anything I can clarify on that? Cool. Okay. So in terms of upcoming stuff, I'll start with the elections. My understanding is that there's going to be elections in May. My understanding is that's aligned with the CF election timeline. I haven't actually seen that written down anywhere. Maybe y'all actually know more about that than I do. But our expectation is that we'll be having a Paketo steering committee election in the next month or so. A couple of other upcoming things that we're actively working on. The first is language family specific builders. So at the moment, if you want to like build an app, you get a builder and the builder has like all of the build packs in it, which is fine. It's a good onboarding experience. But sadly, we're hitting like the layer limit in Docker. We're hitting 127 layers, and we just can't keep adding build packs to that. So one of the solutions we have that we're going to be moving forward with is having sort of language family specifics, starting with Java, because that just has the most build packs. So if you're an app developer and you know you're building a Java app, you can use a Java builder and you'll be able to get like a wider set of like supported features than if you just sort of use the, you know, the kind of full builder or the, you know, getting started builder. We're also exploring other mechanisms to solve this layer limit problem, like we're exploring squashing layers at the build pack level, so that, you know, instead of having 100 odd layers for 10 build packs, we'll have 10 layers for 10 build packs. But that comes with trade-offs. So we're kind of proposing, or we're moving forward with both solutions because they solve different use cases. Happy to dig into some of the technical ramifications of that if anyone's interested. And then another upcoming track is support for UBI. So we've just merged an RFC to like support or have support for UBI stacks. And our friends over in Red Hat are driving that one forward. UBI is an alternative to Ubuntu. It's primarily of interest to people who use UBI in a commercial sense, because there's like ramifications that you must have like a whole like UBI stack from end to end. It basically allows those folks to use Paketo in their like commercial setting. So it broadens the ecosystem, something Red Hat's very interested in. It uses a feature that just landed in the upstream Cloud Foundry, or sorry, Cloud Native Buildpack project, which is called extensions. That's something that's been talked about on and off for a long time, that it basically allows you to like add stuff at runtime and at build time on top of your like stack. So instead of having to make completely new stacks for every use case, you can kind of take a stack and you can like add things dynamically at build time and at runtime, which is a pretty cool feature. And it allows things like, it's like mixins, right? Mixins for stacks. And then the final sort of thing that's not necessarily as actionable right now, but it's something that's on our roadmap, is ARM64 support. I know Ryan mentioned this in the past. It was the #1 requested feature for 2023 by the community. So I'm hoping to make some progress on that soon. It will help both local developers using like Apple hardware, but also like, you know, like ARM chips in the cloud, which is becoming a more common request for some consumers as well. Cool. Any questions on anything? Anything I can clarify or jump into in more detail? Okay, so we can talk about the CF Linux FS4 stuff. I also, I didn't catch if you have this on your agenda, so I was also going to request that we could have a quick conversation about an RFC, or not an RFC, like a change that we have open for y'all about the creating like subgroups for build packs. I think, Ruben, you probably have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, it was just around naming, but I mean, I think what was already resolved, or the proposal you made was okay.
Great. We can have that conversation as soon as people are happy then.
I also looked into that. It looks good. I was just wondering, Daniel is still a approver, Daniel Mikasa. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name. He's still Daniel Mikasa. He's still working on the. He's an approver. I wasn't sure whether he's an active or not in the project.
Yeah, so Dan Makusa is still very active in the Paketo space. He and specifically the steering committee and the Java and utilities build packs. As far as the CF build packs, I don't know. I haven't been paying close attention to every single person's commit, and I don't look at the Java build pack that often. We can dig into it and see. I think I would err on the side of keeping him in because he has a lot of context and he is still pretty active on the Paketo side. And I think it would just be logistically annoying if like we need his input and he's not listed and we have to like merge RFC and wait 3 weeks for, you know, 2 cycles of a TOC meeting. So if you all don't mind, I think I would keep it as is.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I just was wondering.
Okay, in that case, so if you're happy to take that conversation offline, which it sounds like you are, then let us talk about CF Linux FS4, which is the pull request 573 first on the list. Has everybody had a chance to read this, or would everybody like a couple of minutes to refresh? Looks on faces tell me a couple of minutes, I think.
Yep, so sounds like it goes into the direction of two separate Bosch releases that seems a feasible solution. The only disadvantage, or slight disadvantage that I see is that we then have two different versions that are probably not in sync, and that's the way it is. If we talk about a CF Linux FS4 in version 1.57, then you always have to say which version you actually mean to talk about the same. On the other hand, the versions of the stacks are hardly referred to and hardly used. I mean, there's no way to reference it in applications, and it's more if we have subtle bugs that we have to talk about, then it becomes more cumbersome.
And a potential solution to that, or like a trade-off you can think of it, like, do we actually want to like track new Ruby packages, like, or do we want to just install the latest that's available? Like, so you could also just keep the like base stack as a reference, and once that's built, you also build one compatible version, but they basically have the same version, so you don't trigger on a new security release of a Ruby package, right? So then you keep the versions in lockstep, and that would also simplify the pipelines, right? You could just validate everything against the normal one, and you just have two separate build targets. I mean, I think that could be an okay trade-off, given that we actually don't care so much about the security of that compatible like stack. I mean, that's one of the main reasons for building this thing. Like that way, we keep the versions in sync, and we can also like minimize the additional pipeline stuff that we have to do.
If that's possible, if the version is the same, it makes it easier in CF deployment to consume it, and the ops files are easier. You don't need a secondary update job, etc., or listening. That would be even better. But
yeah, the only downside is that like if there's like say a high CVE in Ruby that comes out, we're not gonna notice it, or you don't get an update until the next time a stack gets published because of some other reason. But if that's like an acceptable trade-off, I think that would be the best solution.
I mean, we would, of course, anyway recommend any developer to use the build packs and don't rely on the versions that are in the stack. But our concern is only, I mean, to break running applications, and I can tell you the feedback on such stack migration is not always 100% positive. And if we now kick in another incompatible change,
I'm also assuming that the concerns for SAP are a bit different, right? Because you have your internal security, right? So you would get probably an exception for that Ruby in the stack, while we have a lot of, on the VMware side, we have a lot of our customers coming with the scans and saying, oh, there's all these things. And so we rather get these things out.
Yeah.
Yeah, for us, the faster, like we've, as PAS, GovUK PAS, we've only got agreement to continue offering CF Linux FS3 until like late September kind of time. So the faster like we can get this out and get people able to, we're giving people like a 4-month window to switch because we're not in control of any of it.
But you aren't looking at using the compatible thing, right? You haven't started the migration. And
no, we haven't, thankfully. We're experimenting with this before it all started. So thankfully we're not hit by it. Yeah.
Okay.
So it sounds like we have a resolution of just two releases, with presumably the internal name of the thing will be the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise we need to make changes to the build pack, and we explicitly don't want that, right? So this should just be a drop-in replacement at the release level.
And you can have only one of the two.
Yeah, you can have one of the two.
Perfect. All right. Who wants to summarize that, merge the RFC, etc.? I don't feel like I'm in a particularly good position to summarize it.
I will go and update the RFC with what we decided, and it's already in the comments. Only regarding the version, there is nothing. Maybe I can just add the comment what we discussed.
Can we decide on using the same version, or do you want to, or prefer to keep that open? I mean, technically both solutions are possible, but if we can keep the same version, I would actually prefer that. It would make also the consumption easier in CF deployment. So if we can say we want to keep the same version, and that's possible in the stack generation without big efforts, then I would favor this solution.
Yeah, it'd also be slightly easier on the creation.
Perfect.
Well.
Perfect.
So I don't really have a strong opinion, but I have a slight preference for just like not for the same version and just building whatever Ruby happens to be available the day that we build.
Yeah,
I think that's probably sort of expected behavior from consumers as well. The language version and get updated at the same time.
So Rob proposed a name for the repository. Is everyone happy with that name? CF Linux Compat Release.
Yeah, zero objection. It's a name, right?
yeah. Naming is hard.
Okay, I think we have everything. Should I create the PR for that repository, or do you, or how should we handle this?
I think it's best made from the working group, right? And then it gets the typical standard way. We can then improve it easily.
Okay, open action on my site is then I will update the RFC and summarize what we discussed. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much, folks. Okay, on to 585 then. I think it's quite a small one. It's closed. Never mind. It got closed 36 minutes ago. I'll close that one off then. Are there any other PRs that people want to talk about that aren't on that list? No? Okay. Any other business in that case? Also no? All right then. Let's close out there then. I will, as always, I'll organize next week's Tia, working. I was trying not to say guest speaker there. That was just the words going round and round in my head. But yes. All right. We'll see you same time, same place next week. All right, folks.
Bye.